This is John's House, a daily place for real conversation about Frederick. From the decisions that affect your neighborhood to the events, nonprofits, restaurants, and local leaders that make this community move. Local, regional, national, and always connected to home. Come on in. John's House starts now.
Good morning. The Wednesday edition of John's House. You know, we are almost to the end of August or past the middle of August. Kids are getting ready to go back to school. It is kind of a crazy time around Frederick. It seems like the school year just blew by for the teachers and the kids. And, we blink our eyes and tomorrow they'll be back in class. So remember those things. And I know a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the new cell phone rules. We'll talk about those tomorrow morning as they are officially in place for Frederick County schools. The rule where they can have it in the school, but they have to have it in their backpack and it has to be away from them. We'll get into all those details tomorrow on the first day of school. And before we get to our two guests today, I want to remind you, tonight is kind of a fun night for us. We've done this once before in July. It is Frederick Feud, and we're going to have 4 nonprofits at Rockwell Brewery with an opportunity for the winner to face SOAR to make $1,000 for their nonprofit. Now, of course, the winner tonight will get $250 for their nonprofit, and everybody in the audience will have an opportunity to either play some trivia or play in the game using the actual Frederick Feud stage. It looks, the guys at Wiser Communications or Wiser Productions have done a great job, and they have a stage that looks just like the television show. And AJ will be up there on stage. Danny will be there. I'll be out there at Rockwell Brewery cheering on all of the different nonprofits with the opportunity to make a little bit of money from your friends at Good Morning Frederick and the gang here at the Everything Frederick Live Network. Sponsored by your friends at Ken's Automotive and Transmission. That's total car care at kenstrans.com. And our friends at the downtown branch of Middletown Valley Bank, where they are expanding their downtown branch in the very near future. Watch for that. Tickets in advance. I think you might be able to get them for a little bit longer, but you're probably at this point going to have to get them at the door. And that's, again, Rockwell Brewery, the new branch of Rockwell Brewery at 8411 Broadband Drive. So come on out there and join us tonight. It will be a great time starting at 5 o'clock, and it should be over by 8 o'clock, depending on how things are going. Good food, good adult beverages. Drink one for me because, I'll be your designated driver. So we are going to jump right into it as we have a couple of guests here on the show today, and it's going to be an interesting show, too, because we're going to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to lead off with one of our other shows, one of our other podcasters. Tim Conrad is here from Bunkroom Chats every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, how are you? You doing all right this morning?
I'm doing great. Still healing up from the back surgery I just had, but other than that, doing well.
Okay. What caused that? What you're lifting too much?
19 years of EMS.
Oh, okay. And that is going to kind of lead us into some of the things that we're talking about. Let's start off by just kind of introducing the show itself. Tell me about what you guys talk about in Bunkroom Chats every Wednesday.
Well, as this show started, me and my friend Elena decided we wanted to do something, to highlight mental health and first responders. Mm-hmm. As it's been kind of a ongoing issue, trying to get this stigma of mental health in the fire service raised, and working around all of the different points of view that generates. There's your old timers that are, staunch and never going to break. And then there's the newcomers, the new rookies coming in, the new class coming in that are much more in tune with things like that. And it's making it a little bit easier to kind of break free of that when I was hired mentality that you don't bring any of that onto the job. And then you just bottle that up and you just let that eat over the course of a 20, 25-year career.
Okay. And you don't necessarily need to talk about your case, but if you want to, you can. Let's talk about a little bit about the kind of pressure that you're under if you're a fireman or if you're a police officer or first responder of any kind. That is a tremendous amount of pressure to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
It can be, yes. The pressure of the job, it kind of actually, to be honest with you, it subsides a little bit when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The adrenaline gets going and you know what you're doing, you know your training. So all of that kind of washes away as soon as you have something to do.
Right.
But there is a nice pressure to also be on your A game every time you show up. And to be that way, you have to be mentally sound. You can't be bringing a lot of the stuff that happens at home onto the job with you, which we're human too. Mm-hmm. Everybody has lives at home. Everybody has marriages that fall apart or, health concerns. We're not immune from any of these things. So bringing that or learning to keep that separate from the job is kind of where all of that began, that mentality of we just don't talk about it kind of stuff.
Right. And I understand what you're saying about the adrenaline part. I mean, it's that way across pretty much any kind of, even in sports. You are injured sometimes on the field and you play through it. And then when the play is over, all of a sudden you realize, oh, my knee is swollen up, or, I broke my arm, throwing that pitch or whatever. It's the same thing in mental health. Once that the adrenaline wears off or ends at the end of whatever rescue you just made, or whatever, house you just had to come out of that was burning down all and falling all around you. My dad was a fireman for many years when I was a little kid. And, we could, everybody has to deal with that, but not, again, you were saying like the old timers or whatever, however you want to put it, they don't understand, they were never taught that you have to deal with that or it's going to eat you up.
Right. It was never a part of the training.
Mm-hmm.
It was never a part of anything that we were taught, essentially. Mental health wasn't a thing back then. And that goes beyond the fire service. That like you were saying, goes for anything. It's only been very recently that it's started showing up in our insurance HMOs and what have you for, part of the packages. The mental health stuff is now being covered, whereas before it was a lot of out of pocket just to see a therapist or anything like that. Where I got into it was I had a pretty bad alcohol problem, and I went to a 44-day inpatient rehab center to kind of get the groundwork I needed to break this alcoholism. I've been sober now 6 years, but the Bunkroom Chats podcast is all about keeping that kind of fresh in our minds, even 6 years later. All of that stuff that I learned to help keep sober and keep talking about things and letting them out and not bottling and moving past this old school mentality, which was very much in place when I was hired. I could be considered one of the old timers. I've had 19 years on now, and it is 1 year from retirement. I'm feeling great. And I owe everything to the lifestyle now that I choose to live or have got to live, especially because of my health.
So back in the day, nobody really talked about it. There were no plans. There was no supervisor who would say, I think maybe you need to get some help. Mm-hmm. What is the big difference now versus those days? I mean, are supervisors seeing this more? Are they saying, okay, I see you're struggling a little bit. Maybe you need to go see the psychiatrist or someone who can help you. How does that work now versus the old days?
It does. Supervisors are keeping a good tight eye on their folks, but I mean, they're not immune to it either. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more also of us kind of taking the time to process things, and on our own, peer support works just as well. But the implementation of peer support can sometimes be not at the right time. It's always there, right after the call happens. Like if there's a really bad call, the supervisors in the white shirt, the upper brass are very good about bringing in SISM and peer support and everything. But it's literally, 30 seconds after you go in service. Nobody is ready to talk about anything then. You got to check on these folks 10 months down the road to a year.
Mm-hmm.
Check back in with them. See how they're doing. That's when things are settling, and that's when they've had time to deal with it. That's when they've had time to process it. 6 months down the road, it starts showing up in their work, or it starts showing up at home. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to get a little bit better at. But overall, I think as the supervisors and as the upper brass have been doing a great job in implementing new mental health procedures for us.
Now, what would you see as a step forward from where we are now? We've made progress, over the last, let's say, 25 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of progress across the board in handling mental health issues. Again, whether it's for teachers or whether it's for emergency workers or hospital workers, or, somebody that sits in an office in a cubicle and is, having their brain in the computer all day long and don't get to release from that. But for firemen, fire people, be proper, I guess, and police officers and emergency workers, what's the next step to make it right?
Well, we got to keep on with what we're doing, and keep championing the greatness of the outcomes you get from being open and honest. But the number one thing I think we need to get in tune with is ourselves, and we got to break that stuff inside of us that because the first instinct is to still say when asked, "Are you okay?" The first instinct for everybody is, "Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh yeah,
I'm good. I don't need anything." And that's something that we need to get away from because you're not, and that's we can see you're not.
Right. And there's no question. And again, that goes across the board. If I use the athlete as an example, it's the same type of thing. An athlete is hurt, but they don't want to tell the coach that they're hurt because they don't want to come out of the game.
Right.
And it's the same for, a person in the fire services or in police. They don't want to tell their boss because they might be close to, a pension, or they might be close to, getting an award for a certain amount of calls in a row, or who knows what, but they don't want to step up and say they have a problem because then they fear they might lose their position. They might, might not get the next raise, or
right.
might not get the next promotion. Is that still the case?
That's not at all the case. I mean, and that you're treading on illegal at that point.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But people do think that way. And
no, that's what I'm saying. That's in their mind.
You're absolutely right. But that's what they need to know is that it is illegal, and it's completely okay to need the help that you seek,
mm-hmm.
and to take that time. They cannot get rid of your job or your position because you're taking time to better yourself. And anyway, just like they can't take the job away from a pregnant mother giving birth, it's the same thing. You got to take the time to be right and be well, and don't be afraid of it either, because that's part of that's the biggest part of the step forward in getting yourself to the point where you could say, yeah, maybe that did affect me.
Mm-hmm. And then get yourself to 100% so you can do the job better.
Yeah.
As you have more years under your belt and things like that. You only become stronger.
Right.
When your mental health is right as well.
That's it.
Okay. Well, remind everybody again when and where they can find your podcast, Bunkroom Chats, every Wednesday.
Right here on the Everything Frederick Live podcast network. We are on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. as of right now, and then replayed throughout the week.
Of course, you can go back and watch any of the podcasts on YouTube. Just go to the Everything Frederick Live channel on YouTube, and you will find those podcasts. And I think it's great what you're doing. It takes guts. To be able to step forward and say, okay, I've had a problem, and now I want to help people who are dealing with the same mental health issues. So, hats off to what you're doing right here in our own community. And Anything else that you want to throw out there before we wrap things up on your portion of the show here today?
Oh, that was all. I thank you for the time, and I thank you for letting me come on and talk about the show a little bit. And we hope to see you guys on our show as well.
Well, that's how it works here in the Everything Frederick Live Network. We all work together to make the network stronger. And again, I love what you're doing. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. The more that you pass this message on. If you have only watched John's House and you haven't checked out the other shows, please check out Tim's show. Again, Bunkroom Chats on Wednesdays. And you can go back and watch the previous issues on the Everything Frederick Live Network on YouTube. Thanks again for coming out this morning.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a short break, and I'm going to come back with Jerry Donald, who's running for the 4th District Delegate here in the state of Maryland. I think if you're from Frederick, you might know this guy a little bit. We're going to talk about his run for office and ways that he is looking to help us right here in our own region. I'm John Hunt, and we'll be right back with John's House.
Hot Fired Arts is Frederick's handmade, locally owned art studio where creativity meets community. Since 2016, they've offered hands-on art experiences for all ages, from pottery and fused glass to wet clay and canvas painting. Whether you're looking for a fun family outing, a date night, or a creative outlet, they make art accessible and enjoyable for all skill levels. Stop by and see them today in the Fairview Shopping Center on 7th Street, Frederick, or visit them online at hotfiredarts.com.
When you care deeply about Frederick County, you want your generosity to make a meaningful impact. The Community Foundation provides trusted leadership and guidance to connect people who care with the causes they care about, supporting local students, nonprofits, and community needs. Together, we're creating enduring impact and making more possible across Frederick County. Visit frederickcountygives.org.
Frederick, if you're craving real Chicago-style flavor, Rosati's is bringing it. From their cheesy, loaded deep dish pizza to crispy tavern-style thin crust, every bite is packed with that classic Rosati's taste. And don't sleep on the steak and cheese sub. Hot, hearty, and seriously satisfying. Rosati's has been serving family recipes since 1964, and now you can get it right here in Frederick. Stop by 911 West 7th Street or order online at rosatispizza.com. Rosati's, keeping it real since 1964.
All right, we are back on the Wednesday already. Is it Wednesday? No, it's only Tuesday. See, I don't even know what day of the week it is. We have so much going on here in the Everything Frederick Live Network. And speaking of so much going on, tonight is, of course, Frederick Feud, but tomorrow night is the 35th anniversary of the movie Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. Lori Petty was also in the movie, and Gary Busey, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers were in the movie. And the movie is basically sold out. We have one single ticket available and then 3 spots if you are in a wheelchair, because they're not seats on the back row. So if you are in a wheelchair, we've got 3 spots for you still available. A couple of those have been sold. And we are 1 ticket away from a complete sellout. Now, one of the cool things about Wednesday nights at Warehouse Cinemas, it's only $8 for your ticket. And not only that, all food on Wednesday nights, this Wednesday and next Wednesday, because it's a summer promotion, so it's almost over, just $8. So even if you get the Krabby Pizza, $8. Normally $16, I think, for the Krabby Pizza. And it's pretty delicious, too. Crab Rangoon pizzas, they have a bunch of different things, plus all of their different cheeses. What am I thinking of? Grilled cheese sandwiches. They have big, huge grilled cheese, even mac and cheese inside a grilled cheese. I mean, they've got all different flavors of that, plus tons of delicious food over there. Everything is $8 or less. Of course, as the normal price is $4, it'll still be $4. So again, just 1 remaining ticket if you want to be in the theater with us tomorrow night. We're going to be having some T-shirts. We're going to do some trivia. We're going to throw some prizes out to the audience. And if you dress in beach attire, whatever beach attire you're comfortable with, don't know that I want to see a guy in a banana hammock Speedo, but if that's what you're comfortable with, good for you. Again, anybody who dresses in any beach attire, it's not a contest. Everybody's going to get hooked up with a Maryland Lottery scratch-off card. So you could win big bucks while you're out there as well. And we have a grand prize of a $25 gift card for food in the theater. Plus, adult beverages, from what I understand, on Wednesdays are also 50% off. So that's going to be tomorrow night, the 35th anniversary of Point Break, Wednesday, August 19th, right there at Warehouse Cinemas. Good partners with us here at the Everything Frederick Live Network. Now, I have a special guest on with us, and you're going to start seeing a lot of him around the network, talking about what he is getting ready to do while he runs for the 4th District Delegate. It's Jerry Donald, and you'll see his signs around that say Donald for Delegate. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm great, John. Thank you very much.
And it's great to have you on the show. Let's start off by, you and I have talked about this before, but let's let the listeners who, maybe they're not as educated in the process of the elections and what district is what, please explain to them where the 4th District actually is.
The 4th District is in Frederick County, around Frederick City and Urbana. Basically, if you draw a circle around Frederick City and reach out to Urbana, that's the 3rd District.
Mm-hmm.
Everything outside of that, except for Thurmont and Emmitsburg and a little piece of Mount Airy, is the 4th District.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much more rural. The 3rd District's much more urban.
Okay. And there are a lot of issues covering this region, and some of which we've talked about. But before we get into the issues, let's talk a little bit about you and how you got to this point. Now, if I remember our conversations, you taught here in the county schools.
Yes.
For a while. Maybe give us your history and background to get us here.
Born and raised in Frederick County. Went to Waverly Elementary School with Jeff Holtzinger, who's now running for county executive.
Okay.
And then they redistricted, and I was sent over to Middletown, graduated from there in 1982. Went to Western Maryland College, now McDaniel College. Studied abroad for a year. Got to knock around Europe for a while. Came back, started teaching at South Hagerstown and Heather Ridge, Linganore, and then Middletown for the last 20 years. Was active in the community association, active with church, and then decided in 2014, hey, why not me? Decided to run for office. Very, very close election against Ellen Bartlett. Ellen's husband, Roscoe, was the congressman from around here for about 20 years. So she had very high name recognition, and it was a tough race. I wound up winning. They finally counted all the ballots by the 10th day after the election. That's the one. And I wound up winning by 25 votes.
Wow. No hanging chads, right?
No. It was crazy. At one point, we were exactly tied.
Wow.
The Tuesday night, at election night, I thought I'd lost. I was down 63 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they counted a bunch of mail-in ballots by Friday. And Stuart Harvey was the election in charge of elections. And he called me on the phone and said, Jerry, I need you to sit down. Okay. What's up, Stuart? You're tied.
Wow.
And then for a few days after that, they counted some more because they wait for them. You have 10 days they have to be postmarked by election day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the mail service isn't necessarily that fast. So there are 10 days for everything to show up. And then I was down by 3 votes the next Tuesday. And then they counted all the final votes the next Friday. And it was 25 votes. It was crazy. But interesting.
I bet. And we talk about it on the show all the time. And no matter where you live, your vote should count. But in this case, in this area, and, sometimes on non-presidential elections, maybe not as many people will get out and vote. So every vote really counts. And in your case, there's absolute proof of that.
Yes. The thing is, the politics people get most concerned about are presidential politics.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, you have the least influence on that, not just because of the size of the country, but because of the electoral college system. I mean, really, presidential voting comes down to a few people in about half a dozen states.
Yeah.
Whereas local things, you have the most influence on by far. But people tend to vote in the opposite ways. They tend to vote mostly in presidential elections, and the closer you get to your own home, the less people tend to vote. I mean, people vote in municipal elections even less than county and state elections. And that's where you have the most influence.
And the one that's going to affect you directly the most, your roads, your schools, your arts, your everything, that you deal with on a day-to-day basis are going to be the things that affect you in your community. So it's even more important, like we were just saying, to vote for the people in your community.
Right.
Because first off, you can usually get to them. You can usually have a conversation or at least an email back and forth with somebody who's in the community versus you're never getting an email back from the president.
Yeah, that's unlikely. But yes, it's true. And the things that affect, for most people, the biggest investment they have in their lives is their own home. If they are fortunate enough to have bought a home. And it's your state and local that really impact the value of that because of zoning decisions, where things are going to be placed, how well it's maintained, are the roads maintained, what's the school like near there. All that affects the biggest investment of your life. So I think that's where you should be most concerned and active, because those are the decisions that affect you more than anything else.
No question about that at all. So as we look at Frederick County, as we look at our area, as we are the voters that vote here, what do you think is the number one issue on voters' minds right now? And Dougie, if you wouldn't mind, he's not looking at me. If you would grab the yellow card that's sitting there on the table, that would help me a little bit over here as well. But let's talk about what is
number one
to the
issue.
Voters' number one issue.
Historically, I would say the number one issue in Frederick County would be growth and everything affected by growth. Schools, roads, recreation, things like that, the types of businesses that are around, because some businesses only show up if you have a certain number of people. Like, Trader Joe's. That's a fun one to talk about. Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's only wants to come into an area if they figure the population is big enough to support a Trader Joe's so that you have no place to park. Right. You ever been to a Trader Joe's?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's their number one goal. Let's make sure that there's so many people want to come here, there's no place to park.
Right.
This year, the issue that has just gone off are data centers. Data centers have taken all the air out of the room. It's the number one conversation. It has exploded, and when constituents talk to me, that's what they talk about. It's just all the time. Normally you would hear about, how quickly can we get these schools built, certain things, how much growth is going to be in a certain area. Is it going to be, what's going to happen, say in Newmarket or Walkersville with this kind of growth? Not this year. It's data centers, data centers, data centers.
And do the voters really understand the issues involved? Because I'll tell you what, now I've been gone most of the last 6 years. I have a house here, back and forth, but my job took me away a lot previously. And so I come back and data centers is the issue that is controlling everything. Yes. Do you feel like the majority of voters even understand the issue, or do they maybe need to do some more homework before they start complaining?
They understand that their electrical bills are going up, and that is a pinch. That really hurts.
Yes.
They understand that if they've driven near a data center area, that they don't usually much care for what that's like. If you've driven through parts of Loudoun County, say in Northern Virginia, they understand if they've been near Adamstown, how those have turned the people's lives upside down there. But honestly, I think it's even bigger than that. When they see a data center, they see it as the physical embodiment of big tech money just doing whatever they want to do, and you just have to live with it. And that, I think, is what just infuriates people, is the fact that they feel like they can do nothing about it, that all these line costs from power companies are going to be given to them, so their electric bills are going to go up even more. They have to live with the noise. They have to live with the traffic. They have to live with it, and they can do nothing about it because big tech wants it. And I think that is across the United States, the feeling, because you're seeing people upset about this in all kinds of areas you wouldn't have expected it a year ago. It's bipartisan. The vote on the council was bipartisan. The people upset about it, it's bipartisan. Right. It's just a fury at how a person's life is being turned upside down, how their way of life is being changed, and they can do nothing about it. And that just infuriates people. I think that more than anything else.
And this is something you and I talked about before, but one of the reasons the folks that are for it, and I'm completely on the fence because I haven't done enough homework yet. So But one of the reasons I think people are for it is because it raises money
Yes.
For the region. And I asked you this question, I think we were off air, but how do we make up that potential tax money? We're already in a little bit of a budget shortfall from the current governor. How can we make that up and at the same time keep, our agricultural areas?
Right. I think you just generally have to look at positions and figure out ways to spend less.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing. You cannot push people's property taxes up anymore. I think people are at a limit with that because they see their assessments going up by the state, so they're paying more anyway. I think we've kind of maximized those areas. So if your income has sort of been maximized, you have to look at where you're spending money. And that is the big temptation of data centers. That's really what it was. And you were going to get the ones in Adamstown now. Just be fair. You were going to get those anyway on the old East Alco industrial site. Yeah, that was zoned for that. That was something was going to go in there.
Right.
It's the expansion that people really got upset about. But that said, yeah, the temptation is, look, these things are large. They pay a high property tax because of what they do, and they shouldn't cost the county much money. So, if you're in elected office and you have, okay, these people have these needs, these people have these needs, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, you see that as a cash cow, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think people anticipated the fury of what was coming because of that. I think, it just surprised some elected leaders of how infuriated the public would be about data centers and their expansion in an area. I'm not surprised by it, but I think a lot of people who were in elected office were surprised by it. But it is a significant amount of money, and we have actually asked the state. See, one of the differences between Virginia and Maryland, and one of the reasons that data centers wanted to come to Maryland is that we currently don't tax the equipment in the building. Virginia does.
Okay.
So when they pay a property tax, they're going to pay it on the building itself, which is significant, right? These are not cheap buildings, but they won't pay it on all the equipment inside, but they are expecting to have to do that. And I think the state's going to change its laws. And even when quantum loophole was around, they're out of it now. They expected this tax to come in because they know that government wants the revenue. And at the time, maybe this has changed, but at the time they didn't care that much because pretty much they're just passing all their costs along to their customers. And their customers are the AI folks who really, in businesses that are just seeing this as a gold rush. So, they just accept the cost and move on because they pass it on to their customers.
Okay. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because you are a former teacher. So I'm going to hit you with something that is a passion of yours. I mean, you did this for many years right here in our county, and the need with growth to continue the build out of schools.
Mm-hmm. Sure. We are currently building schools. I wrote the impact fee bill, which, basically charges a fee for schools and libraries. So when you build a new house, there's going to be a fee that involved. It goes on a big pot of money. Mm-hmm. And then eventually we tap into that big pot of money to build new schools. Sometimes you can't do it because some of the schools are just rebuilds. A school has a certain number of years in it. And then it becomes more costly to try to rehab it than it does to just tear it down and build something else. Like currently in Brunswick, the Board of Ed, the counties work with the state. We fund it, but the Board of Ed then implements it, right? So they're looking for where to put the new school in Brunswick, and they have a plan right now. But that's not so much with impact fees, although all the new houses in Brunswick and Brunswick Crossing actually did pay an impact fee. So that's where we get the pot of money. We get money from the state. We also, when we build schools, we use bonds. The government, state and local governments cannot borrow money for their operating budget. Okay, how much are we going to pay, say, firefighters? How much they have to balance that budget. But you do also have a capital budget. In a capital budget where you're building things, you can borrow money to do that. And Frederick County has one of, I think, about 50 counties in the United States that have a AAA bond rating across all 3 bond rating agencies. Mm-hmm. So we can borrow money at a fairly low rate of interest. And we do that in order to finance some of our capital projects over, a couple of decades. However, the federal government is currently in search of money, and they are thinking about, because when you buy a local bond, it's actually tax exempt from your federal taxes. The president, I think, is looking for money, so they might try to revoke that, which will turn upside down everything because a whole lot of our capital budgets are based on the assumption that they're not going to do that, and therefore there are a lot of investors who are hungry for our bonds. But they might not be so much if suddenly they're paying taxes on those bonds or will have to pay more interest, one or the other. I'm sorry, that's a long-winded explanation of how schools are financed. About half of it's done by the state, half of it's done by the county when all is said and done. And fortunately for us, the IAC, that's called the Interagency Commission. I know I'm getting way in the weeds here, but they're the ones that make these decisions at the state level, and they love Frederick County. They love Frederick County because Frederick County goes out of its way to finance school projects, and they know when they put money here, it's not going to be parked someplace and just waiting. I mean, we are ready to build. We fund things ahead of time. We took it on ourselves to forward fund the design of Brunswick High School. So therefore, when we get our state money, which they will give us their share of it then, but they know the money is going to be used immediately. So they like to finance projects in Frederick County.
Okay. And while we're on the subject of growth, one of the biggest things that comes with growth is traffic.
Yes.
And, I drive on 15, for example, almost every day. And I saw a rendering. I'm not sure if it's fully passed, but I saw a rendering of the expansion that is planned in up and down 15, where it'll be 3 lanes on each side, plus your exit lanes, maybe even starting as early as 2027. What are your thoughts on that? And what other areas do we need to work on with all the growth that we have?
What a relief that this project is moving forward, because years ago, when we would talk about Route 15, the kind of running joke was, well, it's 10 years away and always will be. And finally, the governor came through. We got money from the feds, and it is going to be 3 lanes. It'll run all the way up to near the station here, where you get off at 26, and it will go back down. 15 has been a nightmare for years. It's steadily gotten worse. And sometimes you wonder why. Like, where are all these people going at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? Right. Isn't somebody at work? But it'll just be stopped. Part of it, is actually the fact, and I might talk about this with another issue sometime.
Okay.
Is the fact that we actually have so many exits going on and off. It actually slows traffic down. If you think about it, that's where the big backlogs come in, right? 7th Street,
Patrick Street
Avenue, Patrick Street.
Yeah.
You have so many of those that actually, it actually makes it more difficult to get on or to move through. Secondly, after you get past the 15 project, the next one that needs to be done is Route 70, between where 270 and 15 basically dump onto 70, and 70 goes down to 2 lanes, which is a really bad idea. But that's the way it was. And if we can manage to keep it at 3 lanes all the way up over Braddock Heights, because once you get to Braddock Heights, then it's 3 lanes again for trucks to go on the right. So if we can do about that 2-mile stretch, again, doing it on the inside, if you expand the highway into the outside, you have bridge issues. If you have the space to expand it inside, then you don't have the bridge issues, which saves you millions of dollars. If we can continuously do 3 lanes all the way up over Braddock Heights, that will unclog all that traffic south of Frederick, and which will also help 15 even more, because some of that is a problem. And that would be great. Then after that, I guess they'll figure out whatever they're going to do with 270, because like I talked about, and we talked about charging fees on lanes and all kinds of things. That's the state's big issue, but that would come later.
Okay, so now we're saving a little bit of money,
right,
by making these changes on the roads and the proper expansion to go with the growth. So one of the things I'm hearing from you is you're not for raising taxes. You're a Democrat, but you're not for raising taxes. That doesn't happen very often.
I think we should live within our means right now.
I agree.
We're at $1.11, and I wouldn't raise it. I mean, I think people get a property tax bill, and thinking, wow, that's 2 months of my income to pay this thing. That's an awful lot to ask of people. I wouldn't want to raise it any beyond what it is now. Now that is actually going to be the purview of everybody on the Frederick County Council after me, because I'm at the end. I'm term limited, so I'm one of 2 people who can't run for the county council anymore. But be careful when you elect people. Try to find people that want to do good things in government, but also live within your means. Otherwise, your tax bills are going to go crazy.
So you are like I am. I am a centrist Republican. You're a moderate Democrat. Yeah. Not part of the thing that is making everybody crazy. So even if you're a moderate Democrat, you're not crossing the line very much if you're checking the box for Jerry Donald. Something to think about. And I say this all the time about politics. And I'm a poli-sci major from way back in the day at American U. And actually, we graduated the same year from high school. So I did not realize that until you said that earlier. But, you know, when it comes to our budgets and when it comes to, you know, keeping things in line, we have to use common sense. We have to do our homework. Just because you have an R next to your name doesn't mean you can't vote for the right person, no matter what. And just because you have a D next to your name doesn't mean you can't, you know, do the same thing. But in this case, this is a gentleman who has done a lot of work to help us right here in Frederick County. I mean, you've been here, you grew up here. This is your neighborhood, and you know, you're doing the things right here in the county and kind of growing with the county, I would say, in your politics.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sometimes that you get to extremes where one party wants to fix everybody's problems all the time, and you can't do that, right? I mean, some problems are just personal problems. You're gonna have to deal with it, or you know, it's just not possible to do everything everybody wants. You know, when I took economics in college, I remember the first lesson is you have unlimited wants and limited resources, right? Even Elon Musk.
Well, we should have learned that in high school when we learned how to balance a checkbook. Right. But yeah, I got
so you have to kind of balance that out. But government does have a role because there are lots of things where the government has to do what it needs to do. You do have market failures, right? Certain things are just not done by the marketplace. So there's a balance in there. And I think you just have to come in keeping in mind that you have to stick to a philosophy of finding a balance. People want good roads. People want the schools in their area, whether they have kids or not, want the schools to be good schools that are safe, right? People want a library and a park. They don't expect you to solve all their problems. They just expect you to give them a chance to have a good quality of life. And I think that's what people in office should try to do. I mean, that's our goal.
That is, you know, other than you giving, I always like to have it where anybody who's running for office gives their elevator speech at the end. But that's a perfect way to wrap this part of the show up. We're going to be doing this a few more times between now and Election Day. So without further ado, as again, we usually end these things when we're talking to people running for office. Again, Jerry Donald for delegate. I am running because, and here's what I'm going to do for you.
I'm going to focus on bringing your tax dollars from the state back to Frederick County. That is my focus.
Okay. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
I gave you 30 seconds for an elevator speech. You used 12.
I mean, there are lots of issues down there, but that is my focus. And because that is, I think, where I can do the most good for the people who live in Frederick County.
Also something that somebody running for office doesn't generally do. I give them 30 seconds and they take 2.5 minutes. So that is also appreciated. Jerry Donald for delegate. He will be on the air with myself, and he'll be on Good Morning Frederick a couple of times between now and the Election Day, which is going to be here before we know it. You know, it's crazy how quickly the summer went. And again, we got through the primaries a lot quicker than I thought. And now all of a sudden, you know, we're end of August. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it moves fast. But I tell you, if you ever want your calendar to slow down, run for office.
Because you can't. No, but I mean, if you're, and I'm not saying you're either one of these, but if you're running behind, you want more time. And if you're running from the lead, you want it to hurry up and get to Election Day, I guess is how that would work, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is fun. I actually like coming on here and talking, and I hope the audience enjoys it.
Yeah.
But a lot of running for office is just grinding it out as work. I mean, like tomorrow, I've got a county council meeting tonight, but tomorrow I will be in Walkersville just going, I have a list, right? Okay, here are the people registered to vote. You just go from door to door to door. Yeah,
shaking hands and kissing babies.
Somebody talks to you. Most of the time, you know, they're not really that excited about it, but it's just the grind of a campaign. That's usually you're kind of happy when that part's over.
Right. And again, I say this all the time. You have a civic right and I, as far as I'm concerned, a civic duty to get out and vote. It doesn't matter to me personally who you vote for. The fact that you get out and use that right properly is what's important. So again, we're going to have different candidates on the shows here on the Everything Frederick Live Network, talking about different things, running for different offices. Use this as part of your education. Take the time to listen, open your mind, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. If we could come up with all the things that we have common ground on, that would be 80% of the issues that are out there. And then we could work hard on the other 20% on, that might be harder issues. So I'm going to leave it at that. Jerry, thank you very much for coming on the show. Jerry Donald for delegate, running in Maryland's District 4. And you'll see him here on the shows a whole lot more between now and Election Day. We thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget, tonight is Frederick Feud at Rockwell Brewery. We hope to see you out there. And also remember that you are what you watch and you listen to. My name is John Hunt, and you've been watching John's House.
Thanks for stopping by John's House. Make sure you share, like, and comment, because this conversation is better when Frederick is part of it. Tune in every weekday for more local stories, real issues, community voices, and the people helping shape Frederick. We'll see you next time.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network. Your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.